winning, that means you're feeling the vibe. The bell rung, you already been subscribed. Right now, the queen, she on live. Right now. Please pull over the whip, no phoning when you drive. Dope Soul sporting with the talk. First lady from New York, Brooklyn. All my people, you rocking with the chat. Hit that. The like button would tell me where you at. You know, step from the MBK. Born and raised up MBK. Hey, real lady where she holding it down. No matter way how you feel, she gon' greet you with a smile.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
What?
Dope Soul.
What?
Your soul.
Where you at? Where you at? Yo,
No, go ahead.
party people in the place to be. What's good? It's the number one chief rocket in Knicks universe. I'm here on Dope Soul Sports Talk with the Queen Bee herself, BK Steph. You are now watching a lunchtime joint,
Yes.
right? So we're gonna try out a little something. Sorry about being late. I knew, I said 12:30. We get here
Right.
a little bit later, but we still gonna provide the Dope Soul Sports Talk the way that you like to have that Dope Soul Sports Talk to you. So get ready for something different. No more soft landings. No soft landings.
That's right.
No low-hanging fruit. No easy topics. We're gonna get into it, man. And hopefully we can entertain you during your lunch hour. Right, Queen Bee? How you doing, Queen Bee?
I'm doing very well. Salute to all of those watching. Welcome to the channel, Dope Soul Sports Talk. This is me and Uncle Freezie. We both decided that hopefully once a week, if we can, if our schedule permits, we're going to get together and do a show. Today, Freezie is leading. So he's going to be the host of the show today. And I'm going to try to keep up.
Bim. So I'm hoping that we can have your lunchtime hours be enjoyable, Queen Bee. As usual, it's a pleasure rocking with you.
Of course.
Right. So I'm going to try to do my very best to ensure that we maintain the high quality content that Dope Soul Sports Talk usually puts out on a weekly basis. So here we go. You want to get right into some topics?
Let's get right into it.
Okay. All right. So here is a topic that I think a lot of Knicks fans wanted our expertise on. And for one reason or another, we weren't able to get to it like we want to.
Right.
But since it's you and I here, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Just chop it up. Queen Bee, where are the Knicks in their current rebuilding process?
That's a great question. I think we're in the beginning. I think, when we brought in Tibbs and Leon Rose in the new front office, a lot of us felt like the rebuilding process started then. And, and maybe it did. If it did, I think we've just been inching along, because I think right now is where I'm beginning to see a semblance of the base of a championship contending team. I mean, when I say like just the base of it. And that started when Brunson was here.
Okay.
So we could talk about the draft picks and how well quickly and the McBride and Grimes have developed, and Obi Toppin, and how that was the beginning of the rebuilding process. Perhaps re-signing, RJ Barrett, perhaps. Brunson. I think it's Brunson and the reemergence of Randall.
Okay.
That really makes me feel like the rebuilding process is getting off the ground. Put it that way.
So I thought initially.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So to use layman's terms,
Mm-hmm.
in order to rebuild, you have to destroy the prior build, lay a new foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and rebuild on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, then it's called renovating.
So are we renovating the prior regime's roster? Or are we rebuilding on top of an existing foundation with new stuff? And I think that's where we are, right? And so I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I was just going to ask how many players from the prior regime is still here.
Maybe two. Maybe two. RJ and Randall.
Right. But you still think that's a renovation?
No, I don't think it's a renovation. I think it's a rebuild.
Oh, okay. So we're on the same page then.
Yeah. I think I'm saying is if we'd have took all those players from the previous thing and then tried to rebuild with them, it's a reno. But anyway, what I'm saying right now is this organization, this front office had to tear it down to the studs, had to tear it down from scratch, only keeping Randall and RJ. Right. And the only reason why I feel like they kept RJ because RJ was a rookie. Right, or coming off his rookie year,
right,
and Mitch, and let me not
right.
Yeah. All right, so it's three players, right? But if you notice that the players that accompanied Mitch in the league are no longer here. You don't see Trier, you don't see Knox. The player that accompanied RJ in the league, Iggy Brasdakis, the first opportunity to get rid of him, they shipped him off. Right. So in terms of the rebuild process, I do think we are in the early stages of rebuilding, but the part of the rebuilding process that people don't like is when you first start the rebuild process, you don't always get the players that you want immediately. Right. Or even if you get them immediately, they're not ready immediately. They're not ready to contribute immediately. Right. Look at the Lakers and Kobe Bryant. They got Kobe at 18. He wasn't ready until he was 21, 22. Right. Look at the Houston Rockets right now. They're rebuilding, but their young players aren't ready. Look at Orlando Magic. And then look at the Knicks. Right. The starting shooting guard for the Knicks has played less than 100 games. Played 90 games. Right. As a pro. Right. So I think we're in the early stages of a rebuild. But my thing with this rebuild and how we should look at it and assess not what the end goal is, because the end goal is always going to be championship. Right. But how we gauge where we are as a franchise and where we are in this rebuild is what the talent looks like on a nightly basis early on in your rebuild. Do you see flashes of greatness, so to speak? You don't have to see consistent greatness because most young players are not going to be consistently great from day one. That's just too much to ask for. Right. But can we gauge where we are in a rebuild by what we see? How impressed are we with RJ Barrett? How impressed are we with Emmanuel Quickley? How impressed are we with Quentin Grimes? How impressed are we with Obi Toppin? How impressed are we with Jericho Sims, and so on and so forth? Right. Are these guys going to be the centerpiece of the rebuild, or is this front office going to use these guys as consolidation pieces to consolidate and get a better player? Right. So I think we may be early on, but in fairness to the question, how early are we in this rebuild process? Because saying that we just started doesn't necessarily do justice to the question. So how far along do you think we are in the early stages?
Yeah, I think we're about. Well, listen, we're 3 years in. If we're saying the rebuild started when, Tibbs and Leon Rose got here, then we're 3 years into the rebuild. But I want to just back up and ask a question, because someone brought it up in the chat, and I agree with you. Okay. You're rebuilding does rebuilding always mean that you have to rebuild with just draft picks? Can you say the Knicks are in a rebuild if, they started, if they kept Randall and they kept, and they brought in Brunson, who at the time was only 25? I say yes. I don't think that a rebuild means that you can't have any veterans on your team. I don't think a rebuild means that you have to take it all the way down to the studs and you can't have a 25 or a 26-year-old, on your roster. I think what those guys do is they help to accelerate your rebuild. Actually, and I don't see anything wrong with that, because the bottom line is, when you look at Houston, when you look at Detroit, when you look at Orlando, when they start winning or wanting to win, so to speak, when those guys get good enough, what are they going to do? They're going to go out and put some veterans around them.
Okay. So let me say this to that, because let me say this to that, what you just said, because I think sometimes we equate a Knicks rebuild to a general NBA rebuild, and they can't be any more diverse or divergent. Rebuilding in New York and rebuilding in anywhere else USA are not even closely related. Right. But let me say this, though. Let me say this. When the Golden State Warriors drafted Stephen Curry, at the time, we didn't know that was the beginning of a dynasty for them. Right? We did not know. But let me say this just real quick. I need like 30 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
When the Knicks drafted, when the Warriors drafted Ike Diogu and Monte Ellis, nobody knew that Monte Ellis was going to be better than Ike Diogu. Monte Ellis was a second-round pick. The next year, they drafted Patrick O'Brien. The year after that, the Warriors in 2007 drafted Marco Bellinelli. In 2008, they drafted Anthony Randolph and Richard Hendricks. Right? Now, mind you, I just mentioned 4 drafts. Diogo Ellis, Patrick O'Brien, Marco Bellinelli, Anthony Randolph, right? In their 5th draft, they drafted Stephen Curry. And then the next year after they drafted Steph Curry, they drafted a dude named Ekpe Udoh out of Baylor, the athlete, the small forward. We remember him. He was supposed to be special. He was a bust. Anthony Randolph was a bust. Marco Bellinelli, bust. Patrick O'Brien, bust. Ike Diogo, bust. Monte Ellis, surprising second-round pick. Right. After Ekpe Udoh, they drafted Charles Jenkins and Klay Thompson. Right. The very next year, they drafted Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli, Draymond Green, and a dude that never came over. Then they drafted Kevon Looney, and then Damian Jones, and then Jacob Evans, who he acquired in a trade. Right. So what I'm getting at is this. Teams generally don't get it right in the draft until they get it right in the draft. Right? And so even though a team can draft good players and bring in solid vets, like the Knicks have done, I don't believe that so far in this rebuild, the Knicks have drafted their player that's going to take us to the next level. And I don't think it's going to happen until it happens. Now,
correct.
Is that going to be this year's draft? Well, we have 2 shots at it. Right? In the first round. We have Dallas's pick and the Knicks pick. Right? And
you can get a star anywhere in that first round. Like, a lot of people believe that you have to have a top 5, top 10 pick in order to get a star. When we look at the stars in the league right now, how many of them were top 5, top 10 picks?
Giannis was not a top 5 pick. Jokic was not a top 5 pick. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George were not top 5 picks. Now, you can look at LeBron and Anthony Davis. They were the number 1 picks in their draft.
Embiid.
Right? And Embiid was the number 3 pick in his draft. Right? But the Knicks have 2 first-round picks. And you know what? And I'll say this. Allen Iverson went number 1 in his draft, and most teams would say I would take Allen Iverson number 1 overall in his draft every time. For some of us, we'd rather take Kobe Bryant at 13. Kobe Bryant fell to 13. Right. And so it's one of those things where you talk about where the Knicks are in their rebuild. Rebuilds take a long time. Right. And those teams that draft early on in the draft and they stay there for a long time, a lot of those teams don't have championship level success Just look at the process. Before the process with Philly, when they had Lou Williams, Mo Harkless, Vucevic, Andre Iguodala, Drew Holiday, they were a second-round exit team. They went through the process, tanked for all those years, got the number 1 pick a couple of times, and right now, Philly with Joel Embiid is still a second-round exit team.
Right. And the point I think you're trying to make is there's no guarantees in the draft.
There's no guarantees in the draft.
There's no guarantees, period. I think you have to build your team based on where you are. Right. If you're in Orlando Magic and you don't have talent, then yeah, you just go to the draft every year and you hope you hit. But if you're the Knicks and you signed Randall and he popped, right? What do? You just trade him off so you can go back into the lottery and see, if we go, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years in a row, maybe we'll find that guy. Right. But that's what the Knicks have been doing. Right. The Knicks have been in the lottery since 2013. So this is the point I'm trying to make. I feel like the fans are saying the Knicks are shortchanging the process. I feel like the fans are saying the Knicks are trying to build fast. The Knicks are not trying to build through the lottery. That's all the Knicks have been doing is going to the lottery year after year after year. We just haven't picked the right guy. So, and I've said this before, Freezie, what has Golden State done that the Knicks haven't done? What has Memphis done that the Knicks haven't done? They lost. They went into the lottery the next year. The only difference is that they got the number 2 pick and the Knicks got the number 3 pick.
Right.
Golden State had the number 8 pick, I believe, and the Knicks had the number 9th pick. The Knicks have been doing the same things these other teams have been doing. Let's not act like Golden State knew Curry was going to be the 75th player, was going to make the All 75 anniversary team. Otherwise, he would have went first.
He'd have been the number 1. I don't know. Blake Griffin went number 1, I think. But Steph Curry is still better than them. I get what you're saying.
Had they known is the point I'm trying to make. So the point I'm trying to make is the Knicks have did everything those teams have done. They was just fortunate enough to draft better than the Knicks.
I'm glad you said fortune. The difference between and so chat, I love y'all, man, and I do apologize for being a little bit behind schedule, right? But listen, this is what I want to tell y'all. The difference between the New York Knicks and say the Memphis Grizzlies is one word, and that's LUCK. The Memphis Grizzlies are one ping pong ball away from having RJ Barrett, and we are one ping pong ball away from having John Morant. Right? The Pelicans are one ping pong ball away from having RJ Barrett, and we are that one ping pong ball away from having Zion. Right? That's all. Yeah. The Knicks have not had fortune. Fortune has not been in our corner over the last few years. But if things do exist, like if you believe in fortune and luck, it's random. So the day that the Knicks get their guy is coming.
Right.
Right. I mean, look at teams that rebuilt through the draft and made their way to championships. San Antonio did it. They had the number 1 pick and David Robinson. They had a top 10 pick in Sean Elliott. They had a number 1 pick in Tim Duncan. They had a first round pick in Tony Parker. They got lucky with Manu Ginobili.
Yep.
Right. And so these
and maybe even Tony Parker. Tony Parker was he wasn't a top draft pick. Where was he picked? Was it a first round?
29, 30, 29, something like that.
And maybe we're gonna get lucky with Quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If we're patient.
Right. Now, if you want to tell me that the Knicks have been drafting players and sending them off and they're popping all around the league and becoming stars all around the league, then we could talk about the Knicks being impatient.
Right.
But I don't like a lot of fans believe if we would have just lost, and we're going to talk about that. How do you lose? Like, how do you intentionally lose? What do you tell the coach to do? Sit your best players on what's the process of tanking? Right. But we can get into that. a lot of them are saying, well, the Knicks have been, because they've been winning, they've been picking 9th and 10th and 11th. And if they would have lost all of those years really, really bad, we could have had top 5 picks all of those years. It doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
You have to play the games. You can't ask a coach to tank. Tanking starts at the front office level, not at the coaching level.
Right. Right. And so my thing with that, let me, I'm trying to find where is it? There it is. I found it. So there is a draft, right? The 2011 NBA draft, right? Say if the Knicks would have tanked and they would have picked second. You know who was picked second in that draft?
Who's that?
A dude that the Knicks signed in free agency, Derek Williams, was a number 2 pick in that draft. He was a bust for Minnesota. And guess what? He was a bust for the Knicks. Do you know who went 11 in that draft?
Who was
Klay
that?
Thompson. So even if you'd have lost harder, you would have had your choice between Derek Williams, Enes Kanter, Tristan Thompson, Jonas Valanciunas, Jan Vesely, Bismack Biyombo, Brandon Knight, Kemba Walker, Jimmy Fredette. All those dudes went ahead of Klay Thompson.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
How did that Kemba Walker thing work out for the Knicks? You know what I'm saying? So you have to be fortuitous. You have to get a decent amount of luck, but you also have to do an excellent job scouting.
Yes. Now we could talk about that.
Yes.
We could talk about who the Knicks are drafting. We can definitely talk about that.
You might. So I want to just say one thing really quick to the end of that round, right? I just want to point out. I think it is. So at 28 in that draft, Chicago had 2 picks, right? They selected a point guard named Norris Cole. He went on to win NBA championships with the Miami Heat. The 29th pick in that same draft, 2011, where Klay Thompson with 11, the 29th pick was a point guard named Corey Joseph, right? He was the point guard for Tristan Thompson at Texas.
Right.
Do we know who went 30th? At 30, the number 30 pick was a NBA All-Star named Jimmy Butler. So you can tank all you want. I think it's less about tanking and more about scouting, because if somebody told you you could legit leave that draft with Jimmy Butler, knowing who he is now, would you have been satisfied drafting Jimmy Butler at 30 and not tanking? Yes.
In hindsight.
Because
right, Jimmy Butler, when he came out, he wasn't like,
he was raw.
He was raw.
Right. He was raw. But they traded Jimmy Butler, Chicago did, for 2 dudes that are all-star level right now, Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen. So they turned 30 into. So while I understand the tanking aspect of it, I would just like to emphasize that it's less about where you pick and who is doing the picking.
Who is doing the picking? No doubt about it. Can I ask you this question?
Sure.
And it's based on Ashley Inc. 1. I just want to know what your philosophy is, because there's 2 schools of thought. One is you can coach players are just talented, and they're going to work and they're going to get better overall, and the coaching and the development, people who spend time with them plays a part in it. But these guys are just studs. They come with that perspective talent.
Right.
And then there's others who believe that it doesn't really matter what the talent is. If you give them playing time, if you put them on the floor, if you spend time with them, they can develop into a star.
Okay.
And the answer is probably somewhere in between. But what's your thoughts on that? Because people say that all the time. The Knicks need to develop these players, as if it's all on the Knicks to develop them into stars, and as if everyone has equal potential to be a star. But your thoughts?
I would say this. The Knicks do an excellent job at developing players that want to be developed. Cat said don't care. They not gonna care regardless. And so here's my example, right? Julius Randle. Julius Randle came here, averaged 20 and 10, and has gotten better every year he has been a Knick. Do you attribute that to Julius Randle only? Or do you give the Knicks some credit in helping develop Julius Randle into a fringe borderline all-star averaging about 25 points and 11 rebounds? Because if it was all Randle, he would have done that in Los Angeles and would never have become a Knick. He would have done that in New Orleans and would never have become a Knick. The Knicks got a raw piece of clay in Julius Randle and helped him develop. Now, Randle put in a lot of work. I don't want to take no credit from Randle. Randle put in a lot of work, right? But I think the Knicks helped develop Julius Randle, and I think they also helped develop Jalen Brunson. Right.
But then what would you say about the players who don't develop? Is that all on the Knicks? Like when you look at Mitchell Robinson, who's developed some, don't get me wrong.
Mitch has developed, yep.
Mitch has developed, but maybe not at a faster rate. When you look at Quickly, in my opinion, out of all of our draft picks, he's probably developed the most in the shortest period of time.
Right.
I just think there's so many variables.
So the talking point number one should be, what NBA franchise turns all of their draft picks into all-stars?
Correct.
Nobody. There's always going to be players that fail to launch. I mentioned them specifically. That's why I said Marco Bellinelli, Ike Diagu, Anthony Randolph, all those guys from Golden State, right? They got Steph Curry. Steph Curry developed into maybe one of the greatest players of all time. Klay Thompson, one of the greatest two-way players, 3-and-D of all time, right? Draymond Green, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Right. But before that, there were names like Ike Diagu, right? Harrison Barnes, who's a decent player. Marco Bellinelli, he played for the Knicks. Anthony Randolph, he played for the Knicks. Jacob Evans, he played for the Knicks. They ain't turned out to be nothing. Right. So to say Frank, Kevin Knox, and some others didn't develop should not take away the fact that RJ Barrett is a 20-point per game scorer in the NBA. Quickly is showing signs every day. Grimes looks like he's going to be a player. Mitchell Robinson has developed, and I'll go one even further. I won't mention Randle and Brunson, but I'll go even. If you notice the play of Jericho Sims lately, Jericho Sims is looking more and more like a guy that can be a key contributor to a playoff team when given minutes. Is he perfect? No, but we knew he was not perfect when we drafted him in the summer of 2021. Right. We knew that.
Right. And also, when you look at these franchises and you say, wow, they always developing their players. Look how many players. Listen, if you're scouting better and you're drafting better players, you're going to get more out of that talent. And it looks like you're the one developing them, but you're starting with a player that's at a higher baseline to begin with, right, so to speak. So you're going to get more out of that player. And you can be like, oh, look what their team is doing, as if every player is the same. And it's the coaching and the development that gets the most out of them. If you're drafting better players, they're going to be better. Right. And the Knicks don't have a great track record of drafting. Some of these players, you can do as much coaching as you want, as much giving them time as you want. You're not going to see the results because they're just not that. They're going to grow some, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they're not going to grow as much as we would like them to because they're just not that.
Right. I'll give you another example of a franchise that we think drafts well, but has a very, very spotty draft record, right? The Utah Jazz, right? So before they drafted Darren Williams, they drafted Pavel Povetkin, Kyle Singler. Kirk Snyder, Chris Humphreys, Mo Williams. After Darren Williams, they drafted C.J. Miles, Robert Willie, Ronnie Brewer, D. Brown, Paul Millsap, Morris Almond, Herbert Hill, Costa Kufis, Eric Mena,
Right.
Lawrence,
Right.
Jeremy Evans, Enos Kanter, Alec Burks, Kevin Murphy, Shabazz Muhammad, Goji. So the thing is organizations, when they hit big, but for the most part, they're just calling names. It's the same thing with us. It's the same thing with us. We just some drafts, we just call names, they don't turn out to be nothing, and there's no need to be upset about it. Like, think about it. We drafted Frank Ntilikina, right? Frank didn't do anything with us, but then when you look at the team he played with after us, he didn't do anything with them either. Right? When you look at Kevin Knox didn't do nothing with us. And Kevin Knox is on his second team after us, and he still ain't did nothing for them either. Right? Is it our fault for drafting them? Yes. Is it our fault they didn't turn out to be? Partly. But our day is coming when it comes to these guys. We have to be patient, and I think the Knicks front office knows that. They know that the lottery is indeed a gamble, and that's why they want so many first-round picks.
Right, and that's why, and you can't blame them, given their history of wanting to trade for players.
Right.
You know, the only thing I would say is, you know, unlike prior front offices, please trade for young, proven players and not old injury players if you are going to trade. Right. And this is the thing, you know, with the fan bases, there's no way of knowing when you have a player whether they're going to fly or level off. There's no way of knowing. You're gambling, basically. And so, you know, we're giving away these guys too soon. How do you know this guy's going to turn into? And then you keep them, and then their value declines because they don't, you know, their trajectory doesn't continue the way you thought it was. There's no way for a front office to know that. They're guessing. Educated guesses. Don't get me wrong. They're educated guesses, but there's no way to know. Everybody was like, oh, don't trade RJ Barrett. His numbers is on par with Jason Tatum. His numbers is on par with such and such. He's going to be that type of player. Now the fan base is like, you know what? RJ Barrett probably does have a little bit more to go, but I don't know if it's going to be Tatum level. You know, 2 years ago, though, everybody was foolish for thinking about trading him. But had the Knicks made that trade, had it been for a start, it would have been a good move. So this is the point I'm trying to make, where everybody like, hold on to your players. Stop trading them for shiny stars. What if they don't pan out? You've lost out on an opportunity. And that can set the franchise back as well. We can talk about that as well. The trades that weren't made that could have propelled this franchise forward.
Right.
You know.
And Queen B, I think the most valuable thing in that equation that you just mentioned is time. Right? Time is a very under aspect of our conversations. We say, well, we can just wait till such and such, but what do we do until then? Right. And so the thing about Tatum and all these and all these different scenarios is this. Boston got lucky that Philly was so thirsty for Markelle Fultz that they traded that pick to Boston. So Boston got Jason Tatum and a future pick.
Yep. And a future pick.
Right. For Markelle Fultz. Right. And so some teams just get lucky.
Yeah.
Right. Some teams just get lucky. Boston picked Jason Tatum Jaylen Brown at 3 in one draft and Jason Tatum at 3 at the next draft.
Right.
It's just lucky. Right. But they took a gamble, and Boston, from my money, I don't think they tanked. I think they were just bad. If I remember right, they whatever, it's Boston. But yeah, in terms of where we are with the rebuild, I think the Knicks are adding quality veterans, right? That may have limited ceilings. They may have I don't know what the limit is to their ceiling because I hadn't seen them in enough high leverage games to know if they can break through invisible ceilings or not.
Right.
Right. But at the same time, I know the Knicks are armed with enough draft picks to keep taking shots in the draft to see if they can get lucky and get their, dare I say, Devin Booker, Kobe Bryant, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine type of guy out of the draft.
Right. But a lot of times you just don't know. There's a few players where you know right from the giddy up, as my grandmother would say, that this guy is a generational talent, and there's no way this guy is gonna fail in the NBA. But how many of those are there?
I think they come around maybe one guy every 3 years or so. Just one. Yo, I am Jerrell is in the building. What's good, boss?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another one. If the player is not getting touches because they aren't good enough, or are they not good enough because the coach is not giving them touches? That's another one we can go back and forth in.
You want to talk about that one?
Sure, and then we can get back to the to the rebound. I just want to say on the other one about the development, is it the player or the coach? For me personally, I think it's mostly on the player at this level. Now, I do think, having a coach that believes in you makes a difference. Right. I think getting some quality minutes, I don't think you have to start, but I think getting quality NBA minutes so you can understand what it's like to be in the game and what it takes, that's a part of your development. But this idea that it's all on the coaching staff to take a player and turn them into a star, I just totally
me too.
disagree with that. In this day and age, in this NBA, you got to have your own developmental team. Right. And now the coaching staff, and a lot of players don't even want the coaching staff to I got my own team.
Right.
Just tell me, what role I'm gonna have, what you think I need to work on to get more minutes or whatever. I got my own team to work with me.
I'll be ready at training camp. Yep.
I'll be ready for training camp. So this idea that Tibbs is out there with McBride, putting him through the paces and helping him develop, like that's just not happening. Even though there was a story that he does, I don't know if he still does it. Last year, he would come in, the first part of practice would just be with the young guys, putting them through the paces. Not a lot of coaches do that. By the way. So that's what I'm saying. Oh, so-and-so is not developing because Tibbs, what do you want? Like Tibbs is going to be running him through drills? Like it just doesn't happen that way.
It just doesn't happen. This is
they have people. This is pro basketball. Right. You are in charge of your game.
Right. And I'll tell you something just really quick, right? So I barely made the team as a 7th grader, right? Because we had an 8th grade team and in Jersey City, we had an 8th grade team, right? And so we're playing against these dudes like, man, anyway, Jersey City stars like David Rivers, Raphael Addison, dudes that went on to different places and became stuff, right? Coach come to me, he's like, hey, man, Uncle Freezie, the only reason why you made the team because you tall. So knowing that, don't come in here, ask for no jersey number. You're going to get the jersey number we give you. And he gave me some whack number too, like, I think I wore like 53 or something, right?
Linebacker.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so he's like, and back then the school used to supply your shoes. We was wearing ponies, right? So I got these shoes. They was a size too big for me, so I had to wear like 3 pair of socks, right? And then all this stuff, right? And I'll never forget. We had like 3 big men get in trouble. I was a guard on a 6th grade team at a growth spurt over the summer, right? And then so it's tall people issues. If you're not tall, you don't understand what I'm saying. So I never forget. He was like, "Yo, you better not shoot the ball. All I want you to do is go in there and hustle." And I was like, "What you mean hustle?" He was like, "Go get the ball anytime you can." And I never forget. It was a ball dribbling out of bounds, and I saw 2 dudes from PS14 running for the ball. One of the dudes wound up going to, I think, Cleveland State or whatever. It was my friend now, but I saw him running for the ball. I dove in between them and grabbed the ball and hugged it. And the referee blew the whistle and was trying to get the ball from me, and I wouldn't let it go. And the coach was like, "Hey, kid, give him the ball." I was like, "Nah." And I gave my coach the ball, right? And the referee pointed to the other team, PS14 ball. I looked down. I was out of bounds. What happened was I dove out of bounds for a loose ball, right? And he looked at me And it was a guy at the table. I'll never forget this as long as I live. There was a guy at the table, right? He's like, no, go sit down. Go sit down. I'm going to see what Uncle Freezie got. So I dove for a loose ball, and he left me in the game, right? And then the other guy from PS14 was coming down the lane. It was an accident. I saw him flash, and I froze. And this dude tried to jump over me, and I took a charge. By accident, not intentionally. Because he flashed, he tried to jump over me. I was like, I froze because I wasn't. Remember, I was a young 7th grader. You know what I'm saying? 6th grade is one thing. You start playing against 8th graders is something else. So I take a charge, right? And the guy comes in, and all of a sudden, as I'm coming back, the coach is coaching me. He never said a word to me all season. Uncle Freezie, just make sure your uniform, tuck your shirt in. This is all. He's not even coaching me. But I made a couple of basketball plays, showed him a little something, and all of a sudden, he started trying to coach me. I went from being like the last man on the team, wearing some weird number like 35, with 9 pair of socks on and sneakers too big for me, to the guy that was like Rodman-esque. Just go, you better not shoot the basketball. Just go out there and hustle. I went from that guy to, as an 8th grader, helping our 8th grade team win our little district championship thing. But the thing, what I'm getting at is I showed him something and was willing to be coachable. I showed him some stuff, and he was reciprocating that stuff back to me. And so ultimately what I'm getting at is this. I should have been the number 1 pick in the 1990 draft. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is some of the guys that you get, you don't know what you're getting until they show you something. And a coach with all these personalities and stuff is only going to coach up the ones in the moment, only going to coach up the ones that help him win today. And I think we got some guys like Frank that was super passive, Kevin Knox that was not assertive. You know, and they didn't work out in the NBA, but then we drafted a guy named RJ Barrett who's super aggressive, and the coach can't give him enough stuff to do.
Okay, go ahead. No, finish.
So ultimately what I'm getting at is all about, you know, you have to draft the right fit, and they have to prove to you that they're willing to put the work in and do all that stuff too.
Right. And the coach is trying to win. And so the coach has their scheme, they have their philosophy, and they're looking for those who fit that.
Right.
And if they don't see that in you, they're not gonna, they're not gonna put time in it. And I think another thing, Freezie, is that as fans, we come to the NBA game with the same sensibilities that which we approach college and open basketball and biddy basketball. And NBA basketball is a little different. You can't come with those same sensibilities because you're not going to understand what's going on. It's just a different ball. Politics plays a role sometimes in things. The coach job is on the line. He's playing the best players. I don't care about your talent. I don't care about what you're going to be able to do 3 or 4 years down the line. We're trying to win this game today. How can you help me? Very different sensibility, you know? Well, sometimes in some college programs and AAU programs, it's that same sensibility as well. But it's a little different, on this level. And when you talk about the Knicks as an organization, how can you say it's the Knicks that don't do well in development when some guys develop and some guys don't on the same team who came in at the same time?
Right.
What's the difference? What's the difference between Obi and IQ? How can you blame the organization for Obi, but not give them credit for IQ?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think we just hold on to our narratives that the Knicks don't develop, and the guys that are developing, that's for something else. But those who aren't, that fits our narrative. That's because of the Knicks.
Right.
Obi and IQ came in. Was it the same draft?
The same draft. Yes.
The same draft.
The same draft. Yes. Right. And part of it, I just real quick on the Obi thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obi is frustrating because he is a tweener in a Herculean body. Like, Obi shouldn't be a tweener, right? But he plays like a tweener. He plays like a 3-4, when at his body type 6'9", 220, he should be banging it on everybody every chance he get. But we don't see it. At 6'9", 220, man, he should be 9 rebounds a game, 1.5 blocks, a steal. But that's not him, right? That's not him. We thought we might be getting the modern NBA 4, and we're getting a modern NBA tweener.
Yeah, but this brings up one of those other conundrums. You know, is Obi not showing what he can do because he's not getting enough time, or is he not getting enough time because the coaching staff don't believe in what he, on what he can do? Because people will say that all the time. Oh, it's because he's not getting enough time. He's not getting enough time. But yet McBride can come in his 10 minutes, do what he do quickly. When he was getting 15, 16, 17 minutes, he showed what he can do.
Right.
Like, you're not going to be gifted 30 minutes a game. You're just not. You're going to have to earn them, unless you're on one of those rebuilding, those type of teams with no veterans. They're not really worried about winning. It's just about, they're prioritizing something different. Yes, you can get 30 minutes.
Right.
But on any other team, you're not going to get that.
Right. To be honest with you, I think the Obi thing is this. I can't stress enough that smart people in a group are going to make smart decisions, right? When you put enough smart people in a situation, ultimately the smart decision is gonna be the one that manifests itself, right? And so even though Tom Thibodeau is the head coach, he is still a coach, and he is surrounded by other coaches that are going to give him feedback. And when you watch the bench, the Knicks have like 12 dudes behind Tibbs, right? If 12 dudes behind Tibbs are saying play Obi, play Obi, play Obi, and Tibbs won't play Obi, eventually it's going to wind up getting to Leon Rose and somebody else that the entire coaching staff has belief in Obi, and Tibbs won't play him, right? What I'm getting at is I think Tibbs is asking Obi to do something, and he either can't do it or won't do it. Right? That's what I think it boils down to. Because when I do a deep dive into Obi's numbers and the limited sample sizes, Obi's numbers are when you look at his defensive rating, and I know he's playing against backups and some low-level starters and all that, but Obi Toppin's defensive rating is fantastic. It's just Obi Toppin will zone out, go to Space Mountain, and be out there like, I don't. And you see it. You see it. Like the ball will be rotating around, and Obi will just be standing there. Everybody else is hustling, and Obi is like looking around, like like he in traffic or something. And I know that Josh Tibbs. I think that's the reason why Tibbs won't play him a lot. But ultimately, Obi does do pretty good, right? But I just don't know if Obi Toppin is a fit for what Tom Thibodeau wants to do. So one of them is going to have to go. It's either Tibbs or Obi, in order for both of them to get what they want.
Right. Yeah. I agree with you. I just don't think he's a fit for what Tibbs is.
So he's going to have to go.
Tibbs wants him to do. And I don't think it's the 3-point. I don't even think it's the offense. I think it's the defense and the rebounding.
Yeah.
And the aggressiveness. When you look at McBride and Grimes, those guys, the energy that they bring to the game and in practice shows. He's a big practice guy, apparently.
Grimes is he's the most physical. Excuse me, he's the most physical guard wing defender that I've ever seen from the Knicks. Yeah. Like when you go, I was at the Hawks game and I heard Grimes, the way he be slapping and pulling on people and so gritty and aggressive. You're like, yo, if Grimes is gonna make somebody want to fight him, because he grabbed, I don't know if it was Hunter, it was somebody he grabbed, and I was like, yo, Grimes is not intimidated or afraid of anything. Now he looks like the paper boy, right? But he don't play like the paper boy.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I saw him foul Terry Rozier one time, and I thought Terry Rozier was gonna go upside his head. I did. Grimes is so aggressive. And then when you watch Obi is so athletic that he can do what Grimes does without touching anybody because he's so
Right.
physically gifted.
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. Amani the Great is basically talking about, let me put one up. We had 2 first-round picks last year, and we don't have anything to show for it. And that's a good example of why I said, who's making a pick? Uncle Freezie, the person should have known when they drafted Obi Nolan, and if they did their homework on this player, they would have found out what kind of heart, he has. I mean, listen, I was happy with the Obi pick at the time. And I think part of it was because I thought he was ahead of schedule. I thought that he would be further along than he was. I thought coming out of college, with his age and his experience and his game, that the first year he can get you 8.6 rebounds at the very least. Easy. And I was really thinking 10 and 8. That you would just be able to slot him in and he was going to be able to give you something.
Off the rip.
Off the rip.
So, I mean, but every team is not going to hit on every draft pick. It just don't happen.
Not. And you know what it is? When we see them do hit, we forget about all of the drafts, like you mentioned earlier, in which they didn't hit. We just focus on, look at Golden State. They hit on Draymond, they hit on Curry, they hit on Clay. But you don't remember, Golden State was the Knicks of the West.
Yes.
Prior to that.
Yes.
They were in the people was always clowning Golden State. Yeah. Because they hadn't won in 30, 40 years or whatever it was.
Right.
So the bottom line is you got to have the talent and you got to be a little fun.
So let me do this real quick. So for people that say that, I know I did it with Utah and I did it with Golden State, right? But listen to this: Quentin Daly, Ricky Frazier, Sidney Lowe, Sidney Green. Nobody ever heard Ben Colvin. Nobody ever heard of these names, right? Michael Jordan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ken Johnson, Keith Lee, Brad Sellers, Larry Kristowiak, Olin Polynice, and that pick was traded for Scottie Pippen, and they also drafted Horace Grant. And then after that, Will Perdue, Stacey King, B.J. Armstrong, Tony Kukoc, Mark Randall, Byron Houston, Corey Williams, Corey Blunt, Anthony Reed, Dickie Simpkins. Y'all notice? I said about 13 names, and only 3 of those names stood out.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. Like,
it happens in every franchise.
When I said Sidney Lowe, I was like, Sidney Lowe? Who was that? I know who Sidney Lowe is. He's an assistant coach right now in the NBA. But my point is, I said all those names, and nobody even knew who I was talking about until I said Michael Jordan.
Right. Yes, C-Mac, there were people who thought Obi Toppin coming out of college would be able to contribute right away.
I thought he was going to be 10, 8, and 3 assists.
Right. Because he was a good playmaker in college.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of the rebuild, or JJ would like us to use the word retooling, because you can't rebuild, in his opinion, with a 26 and a 28-year-old.
I think that I disagree with that, though.
I know. I know.
And the reason why I disagree with that, JJ, is you can bring in a Kobe and Shaq to play with a Samaki Walker. You know why? Because it'll be Kobe and Shaq's team, and Samaki Walker will acquiesce to being the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th wheel. Right? It's the reason why Allen Iverson went number 1 to a team that had a whole bunch of veterans on it. Because when Allen Iverson got there, it was Allen Iverson team from day one. I don't care about Clarence Weatherspoon. You know what I'm saying? You don't care about Clarence Weatherspoon missing dunks no more because AI is here. It's the same. It's the same thing. Shaq and Kobe When Shaq and Kobe got to the Lakers, they had Nick Van Exel, Corey Blunt, Eddie Jones, Byron Scott, all those guys. But when Shaq and Kobe arrived, and that was Shaq and Kobe team.
Right.
Both of them were young.
Right. But I guess with this, right, so that it was an older team, but it was still a rebuild. But you're saying, even though they had older players on the team, I think they would argue that, however, it was the younger players leading the charge.
Yep.
I get it. So the Knicks are 3 years into this rebuild / retool.
Okay.
How many more years? I guess that's a hard question, because that's going to depend on whether or not they get a star or not. Without, yeah.
Well,
tough question.
It's
a tough way to even frame the question. Go ahead.
So if we're talking about progressing, and will it be our shot at a championship? I think the main thing we need to consider is what their plan is today. Is their plan to stay the course and bring up the floor of the team so we will no longer be in the gutter or the lottery?
Good point.
Or is it take the home run swing, this summer, to try to bring in two guys to play with the Randall Brunson and RJ and trying to make a championship run, right? And the reason why I phrase it like that is because even the Milwaukee Bucks missed on a ton of the Milwaukee Bucks were terrible drafters, whether it's luck or bad selection. Y'all remember Jabari Parker? Jabari Parker was supposed to be the Milwaukee Bucks' Giannis. And he tore his knee 1 year after the other, tore his ACL, came back, tore the other ACL. Meanwhile, the dude that was 6'10", 182 pounds was in the weight room developing.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea Giannis was going to be that guy. They took a flyer, and they got lucky. They didn't know Giannis was going to be this good. You know what I'm saying? Toronto is the model. The Toronto Raptors are the model that teams want to go by. Every year, they hit on a draft pick, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's okay, Freezie. I'm just trying to give the chat there.
Okay.
I don't mean to distract you.
No, I'm good. Okay. The Toronto Raptors are the team. They basically hit on their draft pick every year. That's been their history, right? But they have won championship by doing that. And the 1 year they won a championship, they traded for a star and brought in other former All-Stars to win that championship.
Right.
And even then, it took a Klay Thompson torn ACL and Kevin Durant not playing until Game 5 for them to win their championship.
Right. So it's kind of overrated. This, homegrown talent. That's how you win. Right. But I want to say this to JJ. JJ, I agree with you. Being in the middle like this is the worst place to be. But I would say being in the middle with no chance to improve your team.
Right.
Now you're stuck. The Knicks are in the middle with plenty of opportunity to improve the team because of their draft stock and because of the players on their team that are tradable and have value around the league. So the Knicks are not stuck. So it's like when you see somebody in the middle, are they stuck in the middle? Or are they just passing through the middle on their way to the top? At some point, you're going to have to be in the middle. The question is, are you stuck in the middle or are you just passing through? And I think the Knicks are passing through. I do believe the Knicks are on their way up because of the draft capital and because of the young players that they have. Now, if the Knicks were in the middle, capped out, no draft picks, no young talent, no way to improve the team, that's the worst place to be. But that's not where the Knicks are. They can actually improve the team and move up. And the last point I want to say, not just to you, JJ, I appreciate you always rocking with us.
Yeah.
Just in general, no team, even Houston, Orlando, Detroit, OKC, these teams with the young core, You think they're going from being a young rebuilding team 1 year and then the next year they're going to be championship contenders? No. They're going to, just miss the play-in, and then maybe the next year they get in the play-in. Then the year after that, they make the playoffs. Then maybe they the 7th seed. Then maybe they the 5th seed. That's the process.
Right.
And I feel like the Knicks are in that process.
And that process that you mentioned, the step-by-step,
Mm-hmm.
is an excellent story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's an excellent story because you can follow it and from page to page. Okay, they had a number 3 pick this year. Okay, he made the all-rookie team. Okay, they got the 5 pick this year. Okay, they got them another stud. Okay, now it's Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. And now it's, but the part that people don't forget is the luck. For every Jamal Murray or Bol or Michael Porter Jr. that falls into their lap, there is one Nikola Jokic. There is always luck involved. No matter who, no matter what franchise you point out has that is on their way or has accomplished it, they have a series of lucky things happen to them where they get their guy and it makes their franchise relevant. And then point to the Knicks where that lucky thing happened, and I'll point to you a lie. Right? Because Denver, they had no idea Jokic was going to be a 2-time MVP when they drafted him in the second round.
No.
Right, but they did believe that Michael Porter Jr. could be a quality NBA player because he was the number 1 prospect in his draft class. The only reason why he fell to them is because of a failed physical.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? So these point to me where the Knicks have gotten luck, and I'll point to you where either it was a lie or the Knicks capitalized on it.
Right.
The one time I can remember the Knicks got lucky is the 1985 NBA draft.
Right.
And
we've been paying for it ever since, it seems.
Right. So the Knicks get lucky with Patrick Ewing, and he leads an era, not a 90s era, it's the Patrick Ewing era. Because those teams around Pat were not really that good. It's a classic case of one guy doing the heavy lifting for 15 years.
Basically. Right? C-Mac, what I will say to you is they were mediocre to contenders. Yeah, I think a player can pop in a season or two and accelerate those steps. So yeah, I mean, it definitely can happen. If RJ turns into a superstar next season, that's going to accelerate the Knicks steps as well.
Can I point out to you the 2 lucky things that happened in Memphis?
Yes.
For one, Marc Gasol was a 2nd-round pick. Nobody knew Marc Gasol was going to be that good as a 2nd-round pick. And 2, Memphis had the 7th worst record and wound up picking 2.
Yeah.
And got John Morant.
Correct. That will accelerate your progress.
Right.
That will accelerate, your steps without a question. It will.
When have the Knicks finished, say, 10th or 9th and got lucky enough to get the number 4 pick? Never. It doesn't happen. The Knicks have never moved up in the draft, ever. Yeah. The Knicks, through all these lotteries, have never moved up in the draft, ever.
We've moved down, though.
Yes.
Shout out to Jerrell. Quentin Grimes has been selected to play in the Rising Stars game during NBA All-Star Weekend. Kudos for him. Yeah.
All right, Grimes. We see you.
Yeah.
We see you. All right,
what
Grimes.
y'all think about the Sadiq? Now, I like Sadiq Bey.
I do.
Are the talks heating up as far as the Knicks are concerned, or just in general?
The rumor mill. Is it the rumor mill?
Right.
Because this time of year, the rumor mill is going to be scorching hot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I like Sadiq Bey.
I like Sadiq Bey also.
For sure. Is he a vanilla? Is he Villanova? I think he is. Yeah. Yes. I like him.
Yep. Yeah. I would say to a Sadiq Bey addition, I don't really care what the Knicks give up. Now, I'm not saying go crazy. Right. But if it's reasonable, go get him. Start him. Right. Move RJ back to the 2. Right. And I know we'll have the most unathletic lineup in the NBA. But guess what? We already have the most unathletic lineup in the NBA. right?
Yeah.
But we'll
Freezie.
have high
Go ahead.
IQ players on the floor, though.
No doubt. This will never happen. This will never, ever happen. But if you got Sadiq Bey and Grimes, that perimeter defense will be shored up real quick.
Lockdown. Yep.
Really quick.
Don't mess around and take Brunson off the floor and put Quickly on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mitch.
That perimeter yeah. And listen, you don't have to even start those guys, but you can have lineups with those guys.
And playing together. Yeah.
No doubt about it. So given where the Knicks are in their rebuild / retool, how aggressive do they need to be at the trade deadline, or not really? Like there's no rush. They can wait until the off season and see what, comes along.
I'll tell you what I would do. If I were in the front office, I am being selectively aggressive, but not overall aggressive.
Okay.
Right? If Sadiq Bey is there, and I could do like some type of sweetheart offer, like, hey, Detroit, let me offer you high upside guys and maybe, some a protected pick down the road. Let me give you your protected first round pick back and maybe throw in Cam for Sadiq Bey. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I would look at something like that. I would also tell you who I love off of that team. And it's maybe because of I love Caribbean root. So when I love Isaiah Stewart, I love Isaiah Stewart.
I like him too.
I love Isaiah. He is in the 100 percentile in pick and roll defense. Wow. And he can shoot the three. So basically, he is either the best or one of the best pick and roll defenders in the NBA, and he can stretch the floor.
Yeah. Sorry, Freezie. I'm just trying to show the chat some love while we talking.
Right. No doubt. We love the
but
chat.
I don't mean
I love the chat.
Okay, I don't mean to stop your flow.
When
you're talking.
I'm super good. I love the chat, man. The chat. Yeah. The chat keep you sharp. I think that's what. Right. I love it. So, do you like beef stew?
Yeah, I mean beef stew. You mean Stewart, Isaiah Stewart?
Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, of course I do.
He's from New York.
I do like him.
He's tough. He ain't scared of nobody. Yeah. The moment not too big for him, and 48 minutes of him and Mitch. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to answer Ivory 10. What is the infatuation with mediocre players who don't move the needle? It depends on what you mean. You mean by move the needle. So we was talking about this. Shout out to Josh, aka Uncle Fulio.
Uncle Fulio.
I don't like the idea of standing pat, not making any changes to your team to get better, and just waiting for this star to come over the hill.
Right.
That could be next year. That could be 3 years from now. So I don't believe in that. I believe you still have to continue to improve your team. So you may find a player that is a better fit for your style. You may find a player that, can shoot, stretches the defense a little bit, opens up, driving lanes. You may find a player that's a better rebounder, piece by piece, step by step. So if you bring in Sadiq Bey, and even if he doesn't start, I think he would start.
Yeah.
And you put Grimes on that second unit. Are you a better team? You are a better team. Right. And maybe you don't even see it in wins in the playoffs that season.
Right.
But then when you add that next player to Grimes and Sadiq Bey, that's the tipping point.
That is.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's how you have to think. You can't think about just the next step. You got to think about how that step sets up the next step. And now we got this piece. Now, if we can get that next piece, where are we going to be? Right. That's how you have to think. So is Sadiq Bey a better fit for our team? Yes, he's a two-way player. He can play defense. He can hit the three-pointer. How many two-way players do the Knicks have on this team? He makes the team better. Does he make us an Eastern Conference finalist? He does not. So does that mean you don't make the move because you're not an Eastern Conference finalist? He makes the team better. There's more options now. There's different lineups you can do. You can do a smaller lineup because of his girth, he can play taller players. You understand? It gives the team more options. So we got to be thinking chess and not checkers.
Right. No, I'm absolutely 100% with you on that. The counter to what was said is, what's the infatuation with over the hill former all-stars who are stat padding? What why go get what's the fascination with the Bradley Beal? Has Bradley Beal proven that he can be a winner? No. Bradley Beal without John Wall is a loser. You show me Bradley Beal without John Wall, and I'll show you a loser.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I hear you, Freezie. I hear you.
But what's he done without John Wall?
But a lot of it has to do with roster construction, because you could say the same thing about Randall. That's what's leveled against Randall as well, that he's a loser because, as if it's just on him and not the team that's built around him. But I think it's fair to say without John Wall, with Bill leading the team, they haven't gone far, and that's fair to say with Randall as well. But I don't know if I want to label a person a loser, just that one person, when there's other factors. Because Westbrook gets that too. He himself is a loser, and nobody looks at the context. Nobody looks at the team construction. Nobody looks at anything but him as a player.
Okay.
But I get your overall point.
And let me retract that. I think you might be right. I think you're right. I'll retract that.
And you taught me that, Freezie, when it came to our conversation last week.
Yeah, I'll retract that. I won't call Bradley Beal a loser. But the only thing is the contrast was Bradley Beal won a lot of games with John Wall. So it's easy for me to fall into that trap of calling him a loser without John Wall.
Right.
So I'll retract that. I'm wrong. It happens.
I mean, it could just be the wording, because Westbrook and Randall gets to get that same.
Yeah. Harden can't win.
Yeah.
Can't win. So ultimately though, when it comes to just a fascination with or infatuation with mediocre players, man, I don't know, Ivory. What I would say, man, is it's tough. The NBA is tough, man. It's tough to win in this league.
It's tough to win in this league.
Yeah. So if you can go get a guy that you feel like can help you get closer to winning without it being an albatross, I can dig it.
Yeah.
But if you're saying to go out and get a Buddy Hield, no thank you. You know what I mean? If it's
I don't want anybody that doesn't play defense. Period, point blank. Unless you're a star.
If
you're a star and you don't play defense, that's okay. We'll get the defenders around you.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure that part out.
But somebody asked a good question. Is Embiid a loser too? Listen, if you listen to them Philly fans, that's exactly what they're talking about, that they can't get over the hump with him.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I hadn't seen Embiid do anything in a postseason game that gives me the impression that he's a winner.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by his skills. Right? But it's the same thing when I think about when I see Reggie Miller and Mark Jackson. People say that might be the greatest backcourt of all time. Assist leader and the three-point shooter. And when I see Mark Jackson and Reggie Miller, I see losers. I'm sorry. And I know they've been to the finals, twice? Once? Twice?
At least once, maybe twice. I'm not sure.
I think they lost to the Lakers something. I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, I don't see. Yeah, when I see them, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a winner until you win.
You're not
And
gonna
that's
win until
just
you
it.
win.
You could sit here and you could talk about Embiid and you could talk about these guys until they win the championship. There's always going to be questions about can they be the best player on a championship team, not a championship contending team, a championship team. It takes a lot to get over the hump. Winning a championship is not easy. Giannis had to go through it.
Yep.
That was the same questions about him, you
Yep.
know, as well.
Yep.
Last question. Well, last question for me.
Okay.
When that opportunity comes, well, how do I want to frame this? How many of these players do you, when we do get into championship contending, how many players on this team do you imagine, there's no way to know with certainty, would be on that team?
That's an easy question and a hard question at the same time. So what I'll do is answer it in a generic sense. 4. Because basically, in theory, a great team is gonna have about 4 core players on it, right? Everybody else can kind of come and go a little bit,
Right.
like the Lakers that had Kobe and Shaq. If Trevor Ariza left, or Devin George left, or Jordan Farmar,
Right.
or Lamar Odom, or Rick Fox, or whoever left, they'd be okay, right? But for the most part, they tried to keep Derek Fisher, Kobe Bryant, Shaq together.
Right.
So I would say 4. And if you ask me who those 4 are, I don't think this current iteration of the roster is going to make it.
That's what I'm saying on this team. I only see, I see maybe 3. Maybe 3.
I don't think Randall is going to make it.
Okay.
Right. And I don't think Jalen Brunson is going to make it.
Okay.
And I like Jalen Brunson. Right. I think the guys that are going to survive are not going to be the ones that are key contributors right now. I think it's going to be more like role playing guys that are going to be next to the guys that we get out of the draft.
To the draft?
Yes.
Freezie, you going backwards.
No.
You know, so I'm thinking if Randall is not going to make it and Brunson is not going to make it, is because they traded them for that star that we needed.
I think we might disagree there because I want to put it in this for my thing is, I think in order for you to defeat Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Giannis, you're going to need elite level talent.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Is Jalen Brunson an elite level talent? No, I think he's a really, really, really good player. Is Julius Randle an elite talent? I think Julius Randle is an exceptionally skilled big that only comes around. His style of play comes around once every 20 years. A guy 255, 260 that don't look like it, that can dribble and shoot and rebound and stay healthy. I don't think guys like that come along. You know, Julius Randle is, so I don't think he'll make it. I don't think RJ is going to make it either. I think you're looking at maybe Quentin Grimes and maybe one other Nick. I don't know. But
Dang, Freezie.
yeah, I know.
You hustling backwards now. We back in as a lottery team.
No. I'm not saying no. I'm talking about the championship team. I'm not. And hear me out.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I'm not saying we're going to trade those guys away and then go back in the lottery. And then what I'm saying is on the way as we get closer and closer to the championship, I could see them trading Randall for two pieces to go alongside somebody that has top end talent. Right.
No, they're gonna trade them for the top end talent.
You think so?
But because otherwise, like for me, I feel like out of those three players, you're gonna have to trade one or both of them in order to get a star or an all-star. And together with whatever draft capital you have.
Okay.
I see Randall and Brunson being here. However, it depends on who that star is. If it's Giannis, they're probably gonna want Randall. You know, because they play the same. So it depends on what that star is. I think one of those guys is going to be gone. Mm-hmm. At least one of them is going to be gone.
If they pull off a trade for Giannis, then I will give you kudos every day. But I don't know if I can see them pulling off that type of deal.
Oh no, right.
For a Giannis type player is what I'm saying.
But that's the only way forward.
Okay, so that means
how else are we gonna get there unless somebody on this team develops into that, or we draft that?
And I think that is where I think the Knicks are due to draft that player. Every team does it. Every team drafts that guy except the Knicks. Think about every team that has existed has drafted that type of guy, maybe except Brooklyn. Has Brooklyn made New York and Brooklyn? But everybody, Philly, the Wizards, the Raptors, everybody, Orlando drafted Shaq and Penny.
Right.
Miami, we're due for our Dwayne Wade. We are due for our guy. We hadn't drafted our guy yet. It hadn't been. It's been what 35 years since we drafted our guy.
But if we draft that guy, then we don't need to get off any of those guys unless, like you're saying, trading them to get somebody to go with them.
Trading some of that decent talent to get like a Rick Fox and Trevor Ariza, Devin George type of supporting cast. Shannon Brown, Jordan Farmar, those type guys. Sometimes you have to pull off a difficult trade in order to get the guys to go with the guy that you want to be the guy. I know that really doesn't make sense, but
it does. I think the Knicks are going to trade for a star sooner than they draft one. We shall see. I'm good either way.
What type of star? See, I'm talking when I say draft, I'm talking about drafting a mega star. I'm talking about drafting a Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant type guy.
Okay.
I
think the Knicks are going to have a better chance of trading for one than they are going to have drafting one. We shall see. Because if I'm in this year's draft, there's nothing the Knicks can give me that's going to make me give up a top 5 pick.
Okay.
What are you giving me? Unless you're gonna say, all right, we're gonna give you 5 first-round picks for the number 1 pick. I'm still gonna look at the next 5 drafts and see if I'm, if I'm gonna do it. If there's any potential person that's gonna be able to,
And I don't blame you. Make the Knicks give you those 5 picks, right? And if you're the Knicks and you can get Kobe, would you give up those 5 picks? Because
nobody knew Kobe was going to be Kobe. So that's why it's a hard sell. Nobody knew Kobe was going to be Kobe. So you're giving up your draft capital for an unknown, somebody you hoping will develop into that guy.
At some point, I think you got to roll some dice.
I agree. But I ain't rolling no dice by giving up my draft capital to move up.
No, I know. I'm not talking about that much draft capital.
Oh, okay.
No 5 first-round picks. That would be insane, and it'll get me fired. right? What I'm saying is regardless where the Knicks pick, right? I don't care about the moving up in the draft. I'm saying regardless where the Knicks pick, I think it's time. I think the Knicks are due to get lucky by drafting somebody, drafting that guy.
I hope you're right.
Everybody, Philly did it. Philly got Embiid, Iverson, all these guys. In Milwaukee, I mean Detroit, I mean San Antonio, Golden State, Portland, everybody, the Dallas Mavericks, the Atlanta Hawks, the New Orleans Pelicans, everybody's getting lucky with it. I think it's just our time. And I'm not wishing on a star. What I'm saying is if this is indeed luck, then I think at some point, it's going to be the Knicks' turn to get lucky.
All right. I hope you're right.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because if not, the chat will throw it back in my face. The chat will be like, "Man, Uncle Freezie, you remember that time?" You said, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
So,
anything else, Freezie? We coming up on an hour and a half.
Nah, man. I'm good. I'm looking forward to this Lakers game tonight. Just want to say shout out to the chat and thank y'all for supporting this venture. We appreciate all the comments and support, and appreciate the fact that y'all came out and hung out with us. Because this was like spur of the moment type thing.
It was.
The collab was always in the air. We just didn't know the logistics of it were complicated. Right. So for all of y'all in the chat, I can't see you all, but thank y'all for hanging out with us and supporting, and maybe in the future you can continue to support ventures not only between BK Steph and myself and Dope Soul Sports Talk and Lawrence Tears, but whatever Queen B does on her own, whatever I do on my own, man, I love it. I love you guys, man, and I really love the fact that you support us, and hope y'all will continue to do so. And at the same time, I hope that we are able to continue to provide you with the entertainment and information that you guys want and crave on a daily basis. Sometimes not daily, but you get what I'm getting at. So thank you all for hanging in there with us as we rock. We are gonna look to do more stuff. And so if you guys can spread the word, like the video, share on your social medias, that we're, doing our very best to provide a real Knicks content that's not watered down or super soft or clickbaity. We're trying to give you guys that Knicks sports talk the way that you like to have that Knicks sports talk to y'all. Right, in the way that's palatable and real at the same time. So I really appreciate y'all and all y'all kind words. A lot of y'all say stuff, and listen, man, y'all are too kind. Y'all are too kind to the both of us, man. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think one of the things me and Freezie was talking about is how to do shorter shows. I know for those who look at the show afterwards, when they see a 2-hour show, they see a 3-hour show, 3.5-hour show, they don't even click on, right? So some, some fans are looking for shorter shows, 45-minute shows, hour show, hour and a half show. So we're trying to fill that space as well. But also, as Freezie said, just trying to, up the level of content as well, as best we can. Hopefully we'll be able to do it, at least once a week. Right. Oops. Sorry. I appreciate you guys for rocking with me. Tomorrow morning, I'll be doing the morning recap show of the Lakers New York game around 9-ish, 9:15. You got anything coming up, Freezie?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be rocking 24/7. No, I'm just saying. If you guys are up 7-ish, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 in the mornings, whatever. We do vibes and stuff live in the morning, doing an alternative to sports talk. It's your man, Uncle Freezie, rocking with Chuck Allen, sometimes GI, sometimes Free Keith, sometimes some other faces that you recognize. Sometimes it's others. We're trying to get entertainers and stuff on to come hang out with us. It's, the lifestyle channel, vibes and stuff, man. Come through, hang out with us. Get your day started off on the right foot. Make sure you check out Queen B every morning after a game. She gonna be rocking. I'll be trying to rock every day unless, you know, business or stuff, something conflicts and I just can't get to it. But y'all know what it is. My love for y'all, love for the Knicks, love for this platform and all that stuff. So I'm just about on every day. Just come hang out with your man.
Yes. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to Blanche Tears, and hit the like button as you're going out. That's a free way to support the channel.
Hey, become a member of this channel.
Yes, I'm going to open up
available.
memberships. Yes, I'm going to open up memberships. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
All right, y'all.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's her.
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.